Rebuilding yourself doesn't begin with a change in your environment or even your habits. It starts deep within the architecture of your brain. The brain is constantly seeking efficiency, relying on old patterns and behaviors because they require less energy to maintain. These deeply embedded circuits are what create the sense of being stuck, as if you're living the same day over and over again. But the truth is, your brain is capable of extraordinary change. It's a living, dynamic system that adapts based on what you do consistently. Every thought, every action, every decision you repeat becomes a signal your brain strengthens. To rebuild yourself, you must first signal to your brain that the old self is no longer useful. That means interrupting the automatic loops that no longer serve you. The key isn't intensity, but consistency. Small, repeated changes signal new priorities to your nervous system. Over time, those signals reshape how your brain perceives, reacts, and creates your identity. Change feels uncomfortable because the brain resists uncertainty. Its number one priority is survival, and it believes safety lies in routine, even if that routine is destructive. This is why rebuilding yourself feels so difficult in the beginning. You are not just trying to change a habit, you are rewiring a system that has been firing a certain way for years. That discomfort isn't failure, it's evidence that your brain is working to adapt. When you feel resistance, you're actually moving closer to growth. Your goal is to push just past the edge of what feels familiar consistently until that edge becomes your new baseline. In doing so, you're expanding your brain's capacity to handle change, challenge, and complexity. Over time, the discomfort fades and the new pattern becomes automatic. This process of adaptation is not random. It follows the principle of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on use. Whatever you do most becomes who you are, not because of philosophy, but because of biology. Rebuilding starts when you become conscious of your thoughts and behaviors instead of running on autopilot. Awareness is the first tool. Recognizing what triggers your unhelpful patterns and naming them gives you power. Once you observe the old reflexes and reactions clearly, you can start to challenge them. Ask yourself if these patterns are useful for who you want to become. If the answer is no, it's your responsibility to disrupt them. This disruption can come in the form of a new response, even if it's just a pause. That pause is where transformation begins. It creates space for new action and, more importantly, new wiring. Your brain learns from what you choose during those small decision windows. Rebuilding isn't one big leap, but thousands of small shifts made in these moments. Those shifts become the foundation for new behavior, and new behavior becomes new identity. One of the most effective ways to initiate this change is to create friction against your current defaults. Make it harder to fall into the behaviors that hold you back. Remove the temptations, alter your routines, and design your environment to support who you want to become. This makes it easier for your brain to form new associations and pathways. You're not relying on willpower, which is a limited resource, but on structure and clarity. The more streamlined your environment is to support your goals, the less decision fatigue you face. That frees up mental energy to focus on your transformation. Then you're essentially giving your brain a new map, one that leads to a better version of you. And with each repetition of the new path, the brain begins to prefer it. This preference is not psychological, it's neural. Your new self isn't something you imagine, it's something you construct step by step. There's a hidden power in struggle, especially when it's deliberate. When you engage in difficult, focused effort, your brain releases chemicals that tell it something important is happening. This cocktail of neurochemicals strengthens the connections between neurons, making it more likely those connections will fire again. This is how effort transforms into ability. By choosing to engage in hard things consistently, you teach your brain that challenge is safe even desirable. Over time, your threshold for stress increases, and what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. The discomfort that used to break you now builds you. This is the physiological foundation of resilience, not a character trait, but a biological upgrade. Rebuilding yourself means leaning into friction, not running from it. Each time you show up despite resistance, you're carving a deeper groove in the brain that says, "This is who I am now." Momentum is a product of repetition, not motivation. If you wait until you feel ready to rebuild your life, you'll be waiting forever. Instead, build systems that move you into action before you have time to negotiate with your excuses. This can be as simple as a morning routine that starts with a non-negotiable task. When you do this task consistently, your brain learns that identity follows action. Each repetition sends a signal that confirms your new direction. Over time, you begin to trust yourself again. That trust becomes your new baseline, and your confidence builds not from achievements, but from the reliability of your effort. This is why daily structure is not a prison. It's a launching pad. With enough time and consistency, structure turns into freedom. Your brain learns that forward movement is normal, and the momentum carries you through resistance, not more into built. The old version of yourself was constructed by repeating certain thoughts, behaviors, and choices until they became familiar. That version might feel real, but it's not permanent. Every day you're reinforcing or replacing those identity layers. To rebuild yourself, act like the person you want to become even before you feel like that person. The brain follows behavior more than belief. If you consistently take action aligned with a new identity, the neural circuits supporting that identity grow stronger. Eventually, belief follows action, not the other way around. You don't need to fake confidence or wait for clarity. You need to behave in alignment with your future self until your brain catches up. That's how rebuilding becomes real, not through willpower, but through wiring. Rebuilding requires intentional focus, and focus is not automatic. You must train your attention just like you train a muscle. In a world full of distractions, the ability to focus is your most valuable tool for transformation. When you focus deeply on one task, you activate specific areas of the brain responsible for learning and memory. The more you focus, the stronger these circuits become. But every time you multitask or give in to distractions, those circuits weaken. To rebuild yourself, protect your attention, worth investing in. Eventually, the tipping point arrives and what once felt forced becomes effortless. That's when you realize you didn't just change your habits, you rebuilt your entire system from the inside out. You are not broken, your brain is just doing what it was trained to do. The good news is that training can change. You have the power to rebuild yourself, not by waiting for external circumstances to improve, but by engaging your internal systems with intent. Your focus, your behavior, your environment, your repetition, these are your tools. When used daily, they reshape the very circuits that shape your thoughts, your emotions, and your identity. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were meant to be, underneath the layers of distraction and fear. Rebuilding isn't glamorous. It's quiet, disciplined, and uncomfortable, but it's also freeing, like it's your life force, because it is. Your future is shaped by whatever you focus on most consistently. If you give your focus to complaints, distractions, or comfort, that's what you strengthen. But if you direct it toward growth, purpose, and action, your brain will follow. The process of rebuilding is slow, and that's what makes it powerful. Fast change often fades because it doesn't allow enough time for neural reinforcement. Real transformation requires boredom, repetition, and trust in the unseen. When you keep showing up, even when nothing seems to be changing, that's when the most powerful rewiring is happening. The brain needs time to shift its defaults, and that only happens through consistency over time. There will be days when you doubt the process. Those are the most important days to stay the course. Your persistence signals to the brain that this new path is empowering and permanent. The person you want to become is already possible. You just have to teach your brain to believe it by showing it the path, one step at a time. Focus is not just a mindset, it's a regulated state created by your nervous system. Most people think they lose focus because they lack willpower, but the truth is much deeper. Focus is a physiological condition influenced by how your brain and body handle stimuli, stress, and attention. When your nervous system is overstimulated or underprepared, it becomes almost impossible to lock into a task. Distraction is a symptom, not a cause. The world is filled with noise, and unless you train your system to filter what matters, your attention will be hijacked. This training doesn't happen by accident. It requires deliberate rituals that prepare the mind for presence. When your system is calm but alert, it enters a mode ideal for performance and learning. That mode is where you begin to take control of your thoughts, choices, and identity. The brain has two major modes, scattered and focused, and these states are tied to very real neural networks. When you're distracted, the brain's default mode network takes over, leading to rumination, worry, and unfocused thoughts. But when you train your system to engage the task positive network, you become immersed in what you're doing. That's the shift where real change happens. This network is strengthened through single tasking, deep effort, and minimizing interruptions. Each time you resist the urge to multitask, you reinforce your ability to stay in this focused mode. Like training a muscle, the more often you do it, the stronger it becomes. Over time, your brain starts to prefer clarity over chaos. And as your attention sharpens, your actions become more precise and aligned. That alignment is what separates drifting through life from building a meaningful path forward. One of the core principles of focus training is eliminating unnecessary stimulation. The modern world bombards us with artificial dopamine spikes from social media to constant notifications that fracture our attention span. Dopamine is the chemical that drives motivation and reward. But when it's constantly spiked for meaningless inputs, your brain gets less excited about real progress. By reducing digital distractions and choosing activities that generate sustained focus, you reset the sensitivity of your reward system. You begin to crave depth over novelty. That's when focus becomes easier, even natural. You no longer chase every ping or notification because your brain finds value in stillness. The shift is not just behavioral, it's chemical. You're reclaiming your nervous system's ability to concentrate, and that's one of the most powerful assets you can develop. To train focus, begin by mastering your mornings. The first hour of your day sets the tone for how your nervous system will operate for the next 16. If you flood your brain with dopamine early by checking your phone or jumping into reactive tasks, you weaken your system's ability to manage attention. But if you start your day with structure, stillness, and effortful action, your brain begins to prioritize clarity and order. Even something as simple as 5 minutes of silence or cold exposure can create a physiological shift. It tells your system, we're awake, we're in control, we're ready to direct energy. That message echoes into the rest of your day. The brain begins to follow the rhythm you set, rather than the one the world imposes. And in that rhythm, focus thrives. Breath is one of the most direct tools for regulating the nervous system and enhancing focus. Slow, deliberate nasal breathing activates the parasympathetic system, calming the body while keeping the mind alert. It lowers stress hormones and allows your brain to enter a state of high engagement without high anxiety. Whenever you feel scattered, anxious, or unable to concentrate, a simple breathing protocol can bring you back. It's a reset button built into your biology. Over time, combining breath with intention teaches the system to respond to internal cues rather than external chaos. You become less reactive and more responsive. This shift is foundational for sustained focus. It creates internal stability, and with that stability, your mental energy is no longer wasted on fighting distraction. Instead, it's channeled into creation, learning, and growth. Focus also depends heavily on sleep and light exposure. The body's circadian rhythm regulates hormones tied to energy, clarity, and mood, and this rhythm is set each day by sunlight and rest. Poor sleep disrupts your brain's ability to filter stimuli, making everything feel overwhelming. On the other hand, consistent sleep and early exposure to natural light align your system for optimal focus. These inputs aren't luxuries. They're non-negotiables for anyone serious about rebuilding their attention. When your body knows when to be alert and when to rest, your brain no longer wastes energy guessing. That saved energy becomes your edge. You can direct it toward goals, tasks, and transformation. Discipline in these foundational areas creates a baseline of clarity. And from that baseline, powerful focus can emerge again and again. And another essential ingredient in focus is friction. We often avoid hard tasks because they feel uncomfortable, but it's that very discomfort that trains the brain to engage. When you push through that early resistance, whether it's starting a workout, opening a blank document, or making a difficult call, you teach your system that challenge is safe. This is how focus becomes self-sustaining. You build trust in your own ability to sit in discomfort and act anyway. Over time, your threshold for challenge increases. What used to break your attention now sharpens it. This mental toughness is not some abstract idea. It's built through repetition. You get stronger by choosing discomfort on purpose. In doing so, you hardwire a brain that performs under pressure. That is what focus training ultimately delivers. Not just clarity, but power. What you focus on most consistently becomes your reality. The brain doesn't just react to the world, it builds internal models based on repeated attention. If you constantly focus on problems, your brain strengthens circuits that amplify negativity. But if you train yourself to notice effort, progress, and gratitude, you wire in a bias toward growth. This is why focus is not just about tasks, it's about identity. Where you place your attention determines how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. The longer you hold attention on your goals, values, and efforts, the more your system aligns with them. That alignment creates momentum. It becomes easier to act in accordance with your vision. And the clearer that vision becomes, the more magnetic your focus will feel, because the brain now sees it as truth. Multitasking is a myth when it comes to deep, meaningful work. Each time you switch tasks, your brain has to shift cognitive gears, a process that drains energy and destroys flow. To rebuild your focus, you must become ruthless about single tasking. Choose one priority, block time for it, and remove all competing inputs. When you do this, your brain enters a state of cognitive immersion. In this state, time slows down, distractions fade, and your performance peaks. This experience is not rare, it's just rarely cultivated. You must protect these focus windows like sacred ground. They're where the best work happens and where the deepest growth occurs. The more you experience this depth, the more your brain craves it. Eventually, scattered thinking feels unnatural and clarity becomes your default mode. The ability to focus is not fixed, it's earned. Every choice you make throughout your day either strengthens or weakens this ability. You are either training your brain to be present, calm, and intentional, or teaching it to chase novelty, chaos, and escape. Focus is not something you lose, it's something you can rebuild. Through rituals, routines, and resistance, you reshape your nervous system. You gain the ability to hold your attention like a blade, sharp and steady. And with that ability, you unlock a new version of yourself. One that isn't pulled by every distraction, but directed by a powerful internal compass. This is what transformation truly requires, the discipline to direct your focus again and again until your life begins to reflect it. To truly rise and unlock your potential, you have to align your biology with your ambition. It's not just about motivation or mental strength. It's about understanding how your internal chemistry influences energy, drive, and performance. Your body operates on a set of hormonal rhythms that determine how focused, energized, or fatigued you feel throughout the day. When you know how to work with those rhythms, everything becomes easier. In the morning, your system naturally spikes cortisol, a hormone that promotes alertness and readiness. That's your window to take action, not scroll endlessly or drift aimlessly. Use that early biological surge to move forward on meaningful tasks. The momentum you create in that window sets the tone for your entire day. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to ride the wave your body already provides. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation, plays a key role in whether you move or stay stuck. It's not about pleasure, it's about pursuit. Every time you chase a goal, finish a task, or even imagine progress, dopamine gives you a small reward and motivates you to continue. But in today's world, artificial sources hijack this system. Social media, fast food, constant entertainment flood your brain with short bursts of dopamine. These spikes feel good temporarily, but weaken your system's natural drive over time. When your baseline dopamine drops, real effort feels exhausting and pointless. That's why rising means cutting back on the fake highs to restore sensitivity. You need to create your own dopamine loop through effort, struggle, and progress. The harder the task, the greater the reward. That's not just psychological, it's biochemical, and it's the path to sustained motivation. Adrenaline is another powerful chemical your body releases in response to challenge. It sharpens focus, increases strength, and prepares you for stress. But if you're not careful, it can also lead to burnout. Your system isn't designed to stay in high electric mode all day long. That's why balance matters. Stress, in short, controlled bursts, strengthens your system, but chronic stress weakens it. You need to learn how to cycle between action and recovery. Engage fully when you're working, then deliberately unplug and recover. This cycle of intensity and rest mirrors how your nervous system thrives. It's how you build resilience without wearing yourself down. Rising is not about pushing endlessly. It's about pushing wisely, then recovering intentionally so you can rise again with strength. An other major part of hormonal alignment is sleep. Growth, memory consolidation, and emotional regulation all occur when your body enters deep rest. During sleep, your brain flushes out waste, repairs neural connections, and resets hormonal levels for the next day. If you skip this step, you sabotage every system responsible for your progress. You'll wake up foggy, irritable, and less capable of staying disciplined. But if you treat sleep like the foundation it is, your energy levels soar and your focus sharpens. The key is consistency. Going to sleep and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends. That rhythm trains your body to perform when it matters. You become a system that works for you, not against you. That's when your rise becomes unstoppable. Not because of willpower, but because your entire biology is aligned with your mission. Nutrition plays a far greater role in your ability to rise than most people realize. Food is not just fuel, it's information. What you eat communicates directly with your hormones and brain chemistry. Highly processed foods trigger inflammation, blood sugar crashes, and hormonal imbalances that leave you tired and unfocused. On the other hand, whole foods rich in healthy fats, proteins, and micronutrients provide stable energy, mental clarity, and emotional control. Eating strategically means you're optimizing your system for performance, not just satisfying cravings. When your blood sugar is stable and your gut health is thriving, you become sharper, calmer, and more resilient. The right food doesn't just nourish, it empowers. Each bite either supports your rise or delays it. You don't have to be perfect, but you do need to be intentional. Movement is another biological trigger for rising. Physical activity doesn't just build muscle, it regulates mood, enhances focus, and resets your entire system. When you exercise, your body releases endorphins, reduces cortisol, and improves insulin sensitivity. These changes create a neurochemical environment where progress feels possible. Movement also primes your body to handle stress better throughout the day. A strong body sends signals of safety and capability to the brain. That loop creates confidence not from ego, but from biology. Even short bursts of movement, like a 20-minute walk or a few minutes of stretching, can make a massive difference. The key is consistency. When movement becomes a daily habit, your body becomes a powerful engine for transformation. You don't have to crush yourself in the gym. You just have to move like you were designed to. Hydration and sunlight, though simple, are often overlooked tools for hormonal alignment. Dehydration leads to fatigue, poor concentration, and sluggish metabolism. Just a 1-2% drop in hydration can impair performance across the board. Starting your day with water instead of caffeine resets your metabolism and supports hormone production. Likewise, early exposure to sunlight signals to your brain that it's daytime, setting your circadian clock and optimizing hormones like serotonin and cortisol. These small habits may not feel dramatic in the moment, but they compound over time. They become foundational rituals that keep your biology on track. When your body knows what to expect, it begins to perform predictably. And in that predictability, you find the capacity to rise without forcing it. You're simply working with your system, not against it. Your emotional state is also chemically driven. When you feel stuck, defeated, or hopeless, on the flip side, clean, organized, and well-lit environments reduce cognitive load and promote a sense of control. Your surroundings communicate safety or threat to your biology, if you're not aware of it. That's why organizing your space is not just aesthetic, it's neurological. The clearer your space, the clearer your mind. You start each day not from a place of tension, but from calm clarity. Rising becomes easier when your environment reflects the order you want to create internally. Every object, sound, and scent becomes part of your biological programming. When your surroundings align with your vision, your system follows without resistance. The secret to rising lies in consistency, not intensity. Your hormones, energy, and focus are shaped by what you do daily, not occasionally. There's no shortcut around this truth. You must show up for yourself every single day. It's often a sign of internal imbalance, not weakness. Rising from that state isn't about thinking positive. It's about shifting your chemistry. This can happen through movement, breath work, sunlight, sleep, or even cold exposure. These inputs influence neurotransmitters like serotonin and norepinephrine, which affect mood, focus, and resilience. The fastest way to change how you feel is to change what you're doing with your body. You don't need to wait for motivation to strike. You need to trigger it with action. When your biology starts to shift, your perspective follows. That emotional energy then becomes fuel for progress. It's not fake positivity, it's a real biochemical transformation. Your environment also plays a critical role in hormonal alignment. Cluttered, chaotic, or dark spaces signal danger to the nervous system, increasing stress and decreasing productivity. Even when it's hard, even when it's boring, the small rituals, morning light, movement, real food, deep sleep, build a body and brain capable of extraordinary performance. This isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. When your system is aligned, rising becomes a natural expression of who you are. You don't need to fight yourself. You simply follow the signals you've trained your biology to produce. In this state, progress compounds, clarity sharpens, and discipline becomes joy. Rising is no longer a struggle. It becomes who you are. The act of rebuilding yourself starts with a decision to no longer negotiate your worth. You are not defined by your past, your mistakes, or how long you've been off track. You are defined by what you do next, by the choice to rise, even when it feels inconvenient or uncertain. Rebuilding doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in the small, repeated acts of courage that stack up over time. Each time you show up for yourself when it's easier to quit, you reclaim a piece of your identity. That consistency is how you begin to trust yourself again. You become the kind of person who follows through, who doesn't flinch at difficulty, who stands firm when others fold. Your rebuild becomes real when your actions align with your highest standards, not your lowest moods. And the more you act from that place, the stronger your new foundation becomes. True transformation begins by letting go of what no longer serves you. This includes habits, environments, relationships, and narratives that keep you small. You cannot build a new future while clinging to a broken version of the past. Rebuilding means releasing old patterns, even when they feel familiar, and stepping into the discomfort of growth. It's not easy, but it is essential. The pain of letting go is temporary. The cost of staying the same is permanent. Each time you walk away from what drains you, you make space for what strengthens you. That space is sacred. It becomes the container for your rise. Don't fear emptiness during the process. Emptiness is where creation begins. In the silence, you will find the clarity needed to shape a new direction, one choice at a time. Your rebuild becomes powerful when you learn to direct your attention like a weapon. Focus is not just about productivity, it's about identity. What you focus on most consistently shapes how you see yourself. If you dwell on your flaws, you'll feel broken. If you focus on effort, growth, and progress, you'll feel powerful. Attention is energy, and wherever it goes, your life follows. That's why you must protect it fiercely. Set boundaries with anything that scatters your mind or steals your peace. Don't let people, platforms, or thoughts hijack your direction. You are not obligated to attend every distraction you're invited to. The world will always pull, but your focus must push back. With repeated effort, your attention will begin to reflect your goals, not your fears. That's when your rebuild becomes unstoppable. Self-respect is the fuel for rebuilding your identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you stack evidence that you are worthy of the life you envision. Discipline is not punishment. It is proof that you care about your future more than your comfort. This is how you build inner strength that doesn't waver when circumstances change. The more you honor your own standards, the less you need validation from anyone else. Self-respect doesn't come from success. It comes from alignment. When your actions mirror your values, you walk taller, speak clearer, and move bolder. You don't chase attention, you command it through presence. In this space, people feel your integrity before you speak a word. And that kind of strength cannot be faked, borrowed, or bought. It must be earned daily through disciplined self-loyalty. The path of rebuilding requires brutal honesty. You must stop lying to yourself about what's working and what's not. Growth begins where your excuses end. It takes courage to admit that you've been hiding, procrastinating, or numbing. But that truth is your launchpad. Honesty clears the fog. It exposes what needs to be changed without shame, just awareness. And from awareness, you can finally take responsibility, not for everything that happened to you, but for what you choose to do next. The moment you stop blaming and start owning, you become powerful. You realize that control was never outside you. It was in your choices all along. That level of accountability is rare, but it is magnetic. People feel it. Life responds to it. And your rebuild accelerates because you're no longer waiting. You're moving. Rebuilding yourself also means falling in love with the process, not just the outcome. You must train your nervous system to crave the climb, not just the summit. This requires patience, presence, and persistence. Results will come, but not on your timeline. And that's okay. Progress is not always visible, but it is always happening if you keep going. You can't skip the hard days. They are where the wiring happens. Each rep, each early morning, each uncomfortable conversation is molding you into someone unshakable. If you learn to appreciate the quiet work, the world will eventually hear your roar. But until then, stay in the shadows. Build in silence. Let the results make the noise. When the foundation is solid, you won't just rise, you'll stay risen. Every rebuild needs a mission. Something larger than yourself that pulls you forward when motivation fades. This mission gives meaning to the suffering, structure to the chaos, and purpose to the process. It's not enough to want change. You need a reason so deep it keeps you going when no one's watching. That reason could be your family, your legacy, your future self, or a vision that lights your soul on fire. Whatever it is, remind yourself of it daily. Tattoo it into your thoughts. Let it echo in your breath when the work gets hard. A mission makes pain tolerable and sacrifice meaningful. It makes you dangerous, not because you're violent, but because you're focused. And there is nothing more powerful than someone who knows exactly why they do what they do. You also need to cultivate emotional endurance. Rebuilding will test you, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You will face setbacks, self-doubt, and people who don't believe in your rise. That's part of the process. But pain is not a stop sign, it's a signal. It's your body and mind stretching into a stronger version of you. Don't suppress the discomfort, channel it. Use it as proof that you're growing, evolving, becoming. Emotional endurance means you feel everything, but act with discipline. It means you don't let temporary emotions ruin permanent goals. It means you're not waiting to feel ready, you act ready, and the feelings catch up later. That kind of emotional strength is forged, not found. And it's what separates those who restart from those who rebuild. No one can do this work for you. Coaches, books, and mentors can guide you, but at the end of the day, it's your hands on the bricks. It's your breath in the cold air. It's your thoughts echoing in the silence when no one claps. This is your path, your climb, your comeback. That truth can be daunting, or it can be liberating. Because it means you're not waiting on permission, approval, or luck. You're the architect now. You decide the structure. You decide the standard. You decide how high you rise. And as you do, the world won't just see the change. They'll feel it. Not because you said anything, but because you became something different. Rebuilding is never about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the world made you forget. It's about stripping away the noise and standing in the fire until only the real you remains. That version is powerful, focused, and dangerous in the best way, because it's not driven by ego, but by alignment, not distracted by applause, but by purpose. You're not just trying to be better, you're trying to become whole. And that wholeness is the reward. Not fame, not status, not likes, just the peace of knowing you kept showing up every day, through doubt, through pain, through silence, until one day you look in the mirror and see not the version of you that broke, but the version of you that rebuilt.